Good evening, everyone. My name is Lebohang Lekoba. I'm currently the BMF Young Professional Chairperson in BMF Soweto branch. Today, we are joined by Mr. Fred Makgato, the CEO of the Franchise Association of South Africa. As the BMF, we see it fit to provide such a platform for information and knowledge and experience regarding how one can go into franchising, and if one is already in franchising, how one can expand within the franchising environment. Given the socio-economic status that we find ourselves in as a country, given the high unemployment rate that we're experiencing, especially amongst the youth, we believe that franchising is an option that should be considered, since it's a model that has proved to be very successful. As such, I'd like to thank everyone for making the time to join us, and I'd like to thank Mr. Makgato for taking his time to come and share with us franchising facts. I think for most of us, we have access to Google and so forth, but I believe there are certain facts that even Google might not even know, and hence there's an opportunity to, hear it from the horse's mouth. And I think after this session, I think most of us, if not all of us, will be more informed regarding the franchise industry, how it works, the do's and don'ts, the successes and failures, and so forth. So as Mr. Makgato will be presenting to us regarding the franchising facts within South Africa, I think please take notes. And then during the course of the session, feel free to send in your questions. And then I think by the end of Mr. Makgato's presentation, we'll make some time for him to go through the questions and provide clarity. Thank you so much. Mr. Makgato, if you can please turn on your video.
Thank you, Lebohang, for welcoming me into your webinar. And I thought I was a panelist, and now I'm a presenter. But in any event, if you know what you're doing and you know your story, you don't need to prepare the presentation. I think, is it time for me to start?
Yes, Mr. Makgato. I think we'd like to hear from you. I think as the BMF, we'd like to hear from you. And my apologies if you believe that you were a panelist. Maybe if we were more clearer for you to maybe to have had more time. But being the guru that you are, I know that there's a lot.
So how long am I expected to give the information, or as much as I can, or do we have the time limit?
As much as you can, but I'll give you 45 minutes.
That's a lot. Okay, no, it's fine, because I know I can do justice to it. I think your confidence comes from the talk we had at the launch, and it's appreciated because I'm passionate about our people going to business, Black empowerment, economic empowerment, and self-sustainability. So I think those are the issues that I'm passionate about. Then taking it from here, I think, let me give a background of who I am, where I come from, my experience, then I think why FASA was formed, and the purpose and the direction is taken now. I'm an attorney by profession. I studied law. I got admitted as an attorney of the High Court in 2000. I started practicing as such from that time until the end of 2007, when I joined the Advertising Standards Authority of South Africa, which is under liquidation now, as the head of legal and regulatory affairs. My main role there was to interact with members and to lobby government in some of the aspects that affected advertising and marketing industry in the whole of South Africa. And we were having international partners. I used to travel overseas to attend conferences and workshops and all the stuff. Then 2018, the SA went under. Then I had my small consulting business. Then I was approached to come and apply for the position of CEO at FASA. Then FASA is an institution. I wouldn't say is an association now. I think due to its sustainability, it has evolved into an institution. Why am I saying that? Its track record and its resilience has proven to be that. It evolved over many years, and now we are at a stage where it's in the process of transforming itself and also transforming the industry. And the reason I'm saying that, because last year, FASA had a strategy review. And one of the first objective and important goal thereof is transforming the industry, thereby introducing or making it easier for new entrants to come through. And it is undeniable that as we speak, franchising is predominantly white. And one can arguably say male dominated as well. Those who don't know about franchising, because I find it time and again that the majority of people where now we talk about franchising don't really understand and appreciate what is franchising. Franchising is where you have a business. I'll give an example of the big brands. Where you have a business like McDonald's. McDonald's was started out as a small cookout. Then it developed into a business idea. Then it developed into a one corner shop. Then they started to brand it. As time goes along, then they decided that we don't need to have a branch. Instead of having a branch, let's establish a business and sell it. But that business will still fall under us in some way, but it's owned by somebody with its own risks and all the stuff. But what we do, we will take care of the branding, the layout, and the marketing by way of what we call the royalty fees. A franchisee, anyone will come and buy into the business. Every month they'll pay us this amount of money, which will take care of certain things, plus what we call the franchising fee. And the best way of doing it is to have what we call a franchising fee. A franchising fee is where you assess or you evaluate your business and say, for instance, if your business is this cup, and you are saying this cup, you get an expert who will come and say this cup worth around 80 Rand. And you are saying, okay, I'm gonna sell it for 80 Rand, but the person who's gonna buy it, I want them to give me 20 Rand upfront to go and buy the material to make this cup. After that, they own the cup. As long as they use it, then they'll give me 5 Rand a month. So that is franchising. That is why now you'll see all the McDonald's in South Africa, they are not owned by McDonald's as such. They are owned by individuals who have invested some part of their money into McDonald's, and they run them, they operate them, they've got their own stuff. McDonald's has the systems in place of how to run those businesses, and they support training as well as the management support. So that is a franchising. So how we want to transform the industry now. It is not easy for the majority of blacks who wants to go into franchising to have cash in hand. It's very few, and those are the guys who are rich and who also know the channels, who know who to contact and where to go. But you also have the majority of, especially the young people who wants to go into business, but they don't know if there are any other options except being a doctor or being a lawyer or frying chicken and all the stuff. Okay, but what you can see in and around the townships, you'll find the young ones, they prefer car wash. Every corner there's a car wash, and because there's no education to an extent whereby being 4 of them in the same street having 4 car washes, why can't you find a better space, brand it into a cushy car wash where you become co-owners, and if it's doing well, you do your books, you register it, then you can package it into a franchisable business where you can say, if somebody wants to have this kind of a business, let's say in Mapeta or in Randburg, so this is how we are going to work it out. What comes out of Franchisor now is to say, as much as we acknowledge that we want to transform the industry, this is going to be a process. Let's start with training. And for so many years, Franchisor has been trying to get services SITA to accredit a course that entrepreneurs can undertake. Go through the process of being properly trained, be equipped, and be skilled, so that when you go out and buy a franchise business, you have the necessary skills and some of the expertise you will learn on the way. But take into account that you'll be buying to an existing business, then you'll have the management support, you have the systems support, you have the IT support. As you have heard when I was trying to connect, I had to call one of our IT guys and say, I'm having trouble. So if you buy into a franchise, you have that kind of support. But what is important for you to succeed is not the only support that you are going to have. It's also your hard work. Okay? Let me give you a simple example of the recent experience. One guy was an employee of a big business. He was the manager. Then through the internal processes, he became the franchisee. He assumed the role on Friday. On Monday, then he became his own boss, okay? But then on Monday, the shop looked different when the franchisors came to inspect his first day of opening. And they said, what is your experience in terms of this shop? And he says, it is now clean from top to bottom, from side to side. And they asked, but wasn't it clean previously? And he said no. And the question was why? He said, because at that time, I was working for somebody. Now I'm working for myself. I can see the mistakes. Meaning, if you run your own business, you have time to pay attention to your business. You have to put an effort. And that is why they say, if you want to succeed, you don't sleep. You sleep short hours and you put more effort into your work. And everybody wonder, why are you so successfully? Or at times, why are you so particular? Because you don't want mistakes in your business. Then what we have managed to do recently, especially 3 weeks ago, is to get SITA to finally agree to our vision of saying we want to have a course called Franchise Manager. And SITA has now agreed that we should come up with the training manual. And we have managed to put together a team of experts within 5 days. And tomorrow we will be meeting and try to shape the way forward in terms of that committee. Because if you visit our website, there are 3 adverts now. from services SETA. One is for the experts to be part of the panel, which we have done. There's also a second advert where those who provide training in education have to apply to be on the database of CIFA. And today of services SETA. And today we received another advert from services SETA calling those who pay levy to be part of the panel, or those who will be applied for some kind of a discount. So our relationship with services SETA is really improved, and we look forward. So in the next months, we should have a finalized training manual for franchising in industry. So that is one of a takeoff, and I believe our attendees here will pay attention to it, and they will go to our website and see what programs are we having. Now, the reason why we also want to transform, we have also realized that the majority of Black community don't know and appreciate the value of franchising. So I think that we should appreciate the opportunity that BMF has laid at the door of our people, of saying, now we have individuals like Fred, whom we can talk to, who is in FASA about franchising. What we want to do is to not only provide training, but also come in and identify few businesses that are franchisable in the townships, of saying, guys, there's an opportunity to grow and develop your businesses to be sustainable, but also to be profitable. So we don't want to lie, there's money in franchising. So once we do that, we take those businesses or the business owners through short-term training, and if needs be, remodel their outlets and brand them to such an extent that they become, if I could say, for a lack of a better word, reputable. Because if you want somebody to invest in your business, the outlook itself must be attractive. So you cannot say you want somebody to come and invest in your business when in fact the business looks shabby. So we have to improve the image, but also what we need to put in place is the compliance system where those businesses are compliant with all applicable legislation in their sectors. Then from there on, it will be easier, I think, to market and franchise those businesses. I think is where the takeoff is. So we are focusing on two areas. One is training, and the other is a remodel of the existing businesses. I think that is where we are at. But one of the most important aspects that we are concerned about as FASA is the facilities. And I've always said to some of our partners, in our endeavor to bring new entrants into the industry, we need also to be realistic. What spaces do we have? So we need to do a due diligence and say, these are the kind of spaces we have where we want to operate. Two, what skills do our business entrepreneurs require? Do they have those? How do we upskill them? So I think that is the process where we are at. But if you want to buy into an established entity, that also is a good thing, because already you go into a place where there are proven successful processes. So all what you do is to invest your money and then you work hard. So those, I think, are three areas that we will really want to see an uptake from our people. I think from the Black Management Forum, we appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to your constituents about what FASA is at. And I think that we should be able to take you and them along the journey so that at the end of the day, what we intend doing is achievable. I thank you. If there are questions and so forth, I think that we are open to take those and answer them with confidence.
Thank you, Dr. Makhat. Yeah, I think for not having prepared something, I think you sound very prepared, and it sounds like you know the industry in and out. And thank you for that input. I think as the BMF Soweto, we recently partnered with an organization called the Township Economic Council of South Africa, which focuses on what is required for the township economy, and also bringing FASA into the conversation, as you were mentioning the township economy. Good questions need to be asked in terms of how do we reindustrialize the townships. I remember at the launch of that organization, it was stated that growing up, there used to be industries, in townships, and today it's just empty buildings. And I think bringing FASA into the picture in terms of how might we encourage young people, more especially, to look into franchising as a way to becoming successful entrepreneurs. Yeah, we're also joined by I think my chairperson, Nkosinathi Hlongwa, is the current chairperson of the BMF Soweto branch, and I see he has raised their hand. Sipho, you are recognized.
Okay, thank you very much. Firstly, let me apologize for joining late, and please forgive me for the noise in the background. I'm actually crashing at a Nando's in Blackheath. I was running late, so I decided to crash there. I hope you can hear me. But
Yeah, we can.
the question that I want to put to the Honorable is about procurement. My knowledge, be it a limited one, is that franchises, or at least the ones that we are familiar with, spend a lot of money buying from or procuring from previously advantaged service providers and goods providers. And in other industries, such as the mine, they have concluded what is known as the mining charter. And part of the mining charter is to look at various aspects of mining. Amongst them is equity, gender equality, or gender ownership. It's affirmative action, procurement, and so forth. And I want to put the following questions to the Honorable. Firstly, how much procurement is sourced from Black-owned entities, either in goods or in services? Secondly, what is your institution doing to make sure that there is more procurement from Black-owned entities from the franchises that fall under the association? And thirdly, those that are interested in supplying franchises, either in services or in goods, what can they do in order for them to be heard and to be given the opportunity or the right, depending on how you look at it, to be service providers within the franchising industry or sector? Thank you.
Yeah, may I respond?
Yes, please.
Yes. I think the question of equity, gender-based supply chain and all the stuff, is it in relation to the franchisees or the franchisors? Because I think it is important to understand the franchise model.
Okay. The question
you have
about the franchisors, what is their model insofar as that is concerned? It's not about the franchisee, because the franchisee is more like an independent person, but the franchisor, when they put together a franchising agreement, do they put in it elements that deal with those factors, but mostly the procurement part of it? Thank you.
My response is that every franchise agreement is different from one another because of the sectors. That's the first point. Two, franchising spans across different sectors. So it's not at this stage, I haven't seen any document or program in place which dictates that as a franchise in the industry, in terms of fuel retail, these are the specs. In terms of, for instance, in education, so these are the specs, because some of the franchises, they don't procure services. I'll give you an example of an educational coach. They don't procure any services. All what they have their desk and they operate. So if you want to franchise and do the same, so that's the package that they give you. But insofar as I'm concerned, there is no what we call a franchising charter at this time. So hence I indicated in my presentation that in terms of the strategy that was adopted last year in 2020, is that the franchising in the industry has to transform. And that in itself is a process. It's not a one-month thing. So me coming in as the CEO and having the chairperson being a young Black lady, so I think there are programs that we are trying to push through. So it's not something that you can do as one might have hoped. But one will have hoped that when the times were changing the country, if you talk about the money charter, I mean, that has been done over a long period of time, including the marketing charter. But the marketing charter has failed, because if you may have the charter, but the most important thing is the willful intention to actually transform. It doesn't help when you have all the charters, but you don't have the mechanism of implementing them or even have to enforce them. But at the moment, there's nothing like the franchising charter.
Thank you, Tate Makgato. I think there's two more hands I've seen, Malebo and Kozo. Malebo, I think you can go. You've raised a hand.
Lebogang, can you hear me?
Malebo, I think you. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you for the opportunity. Ndate Makgato, thank you for the great and insightful presentation. I have two questions. One is about unencumbered cash. When you started your presentation, you touched on one of the advantages being the lack of access to to capital. And it has been one of the challenges on my disadvantage. Yes. And I'm not sure if I missed it, but what is the way forward on that? Because we are previously disadvantaged, we don't have access to that kind of money lying around. So that is my number one question. When it comes to unencumbered cash, what is the solution there? And then number two, just to expand on the question around Black-owned businesses from a supply chain point of view, but I just want to turn it around to say, when it comes to the local businesses, local Black-owned businesses, are there any of them that are part of FASA and that FASA, has verified and would recommend? At the top of my head, I'm just thinking, there's Legends Barbershop, which has become quite popular, and they do have AMA franchises. There's Moja Chicken. Are any of them part of IFASA? and what can be done? If not, what can be done? Because I think one of the other things is wanting to expand a network of a business that is Black owned. Yeah, so that's those are my two questions.
Okay, let me start with the unencumbered cash issue. It's a serious issue. I joined FASA in June, and one of my first meeting was with CIFA to say, as much as we want to transform the industry, and having gone through the previous minutes of FASA, I see that we have CIFA and the MOU wasn't renewed. Why was that? So in terms of our interaction with CIFA, we realized that there is a thorny issue, that the difficulty that they have come across was the issue of unencumbered cash. And as CIFA, they were willing to fund some of the franchise at 100%. Then I engaged with some of our members. Some they are willing to take the 100% gearing, some they are not willing. And I took the matter to board and say, guys, there's this issue, which I think is a thorny issue, wherein we have the unencumbered cash, which according to our assessment is a barrier to entry. And some of the responses we got was that from experiences now is not something that is just put in there for fun of it. From experience, if somebody doesn't put their own money on the table, they don't put the effort in the business because they've got nothing to lose. But if you know you have put in your money and it could sink, so you have all the reason to want to succeed. And then that part, it depends on each franchisor. Some they demand 30%, some they demand 40%, some 50%, some even up to 70%. Because one of the arguments is that from experience, they have provided 100% gearing, and some franchises, they actually abandoned the businesses as they realized that it wasn't easy to make money within a year or so. You have to put lots of time and energy. So some of the franchisors ended up having franchises that were abandoned. So that is why there was a requirement of 100%, some part of your own cash. Then the issue of how do we deal with that? I think with our engagement now, there are quite few of those who say they are willing to take the 100% gearing, but there's the issue of the Credit Regulatory Act, whereby for you to lend somebody that kind of money, you must be sure, or you have to ensure that they will be able to pay back the loan. So if you give somebody 100 or 1.5 million, some franchises, they go as far as 15 million. So you must be able to say, I'm going to give this person this loan, and I've done my credit checks, and I'm confident that they will be able to pay it back. So the business plan itself is not and will not be considered as a proper collateral. So that is one of the realities that we have to deal with. But then, as one is a business leader, you have to come up with ideas. And one of the ideas that I thought about as I was on Radio 702 last week was to say, as Black people, we must also find ways to be creative and innovative. Because if we cannot have cash in our hands, you may actually find that we have more cash than what we think. And I gave an example of the stokvels, the societies, and the clubs. You'll find that a group of people, let's say 10, they have plus minus 400,000 in the account. and they wait for somebody to die, they go and withdraw 10,000 rand. And the money keeps on growing and it doesn't even attract interest, it's staying there. You could take that money, go and buy a BP or go and buy a Shell or go and buy Nando's and make money and be the franchisors tomorrow, or you can start your own brand. So those are some of the issues that you have to deal with when it comes to unencumbered cash, because the Credit Act demands that for you to loan somebody some money, you have to ensure that they'll be able to pay you back. And one of the issues is that the comments we got, why a demand for unencumbered cash is because if, let's say for a franchise business is 1 million, and if you give somebody a loan of 1 million, so the repayment either becomes longer or they are higher, and at times they are unaffordable. So if you put in some kind of a deposit, it brings the burden of paying the money back much better. So those are some of the dynamics that we have to deal with. Then on the issue of, I think, black suppliers or black enterprises that are on fire as a chain, we have, now I'm aware of only 2. Is the Inkoko box. In fact, there are 3. The Inkoko box, we have the chicken bar, we have real water. So hence I'm saying that I think our effort is to bring the knowledge and information to the larger community of saying, guys, there's a franchise business that is sustainable, that is profitable. Look at it and see if you may be interested in becoming a member. And what happens is that in order for some of the businesses, as I started out, it becomes on the modeling or remodeling. If you speak of the Moja Chicken, so we are in the process of engaging with SOPCO of saying, how can we work with the young man and maybe advise him or guide him in terms of how can he develop or remodel the business into being franchisable, instead of wanting to open 2 branches in Soweto, 2 branches in Tembisa, 2 branches in Fal and all the stuff. Then provide him with the information and education in terms of franchising. So those are some of the attempts that we are trying to bring to our people.
Thank you so much for your answer. I think the next hand is Khotso. Khotso, if you can unmute and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Tata Makhato. Thank you so much for affording us the opportunity. And Lebahang, thank you for the platform. It's actually Togo speaking. I'm with Khotso. So my questions, we have 3 questions. I think the first one would be, what are the requirements for one to sort of be able to have their business, to be a franchisor? Let me put it like that. To be a franchisor, what are the requirements and what is the process? And also, is it a must for one to be registered with FASA or not? And then what are the benefits thereof if you are registered with FASA? Then the last thing, it's more of also a comment and a question to the first person, I think it's Nkosnati, who was asking a question on procurement, to say we are also a franchisee currently for one of the big brands. And what we've seen is that it's not easy to first to break into the industry. Secondly, on the supply chain, it's so difficult to be a service provider because everything is sort of done within or in-house. They already have their suppliers and stuff. So for one to come in and want to be a service provider, I'm not sure how one would go about it, which I think it's what Nkosnati was trying to gather to say, what the barrier to entry there, it's quite difficult for us as Black people, because as a franchisee right now, when we took over the store, we were given a list of suppliers to use. And also on the other side, we understand that mainly the reason maybe for that would be because they want to keep the consistency and not compromise on the quality. So the question would be, how does one then break into that supply chain? Thank you.
Okay, let me start with the requirements of becoming a franchisor. I think one is the issue of your business layout. Okay, your business model. What is it that you want to provide? As I said, franchising is not only in relation for instance, in terms of food. It spans across various sectors. So it depends on what is it that you want to offer. Two, as far as what we have in place is to say, for you to be what we call an ethical franchisor, you have to have three things. One, you have to have a compliant franchise agreement. By compliant, we mean that it should comply with the standard as set out in the Code of Ethics of FASA. Two, it must be compliant with the Consumer Protection Act. So if you go through the Consumer Protection Act, it will tell you of what we call unfair business practices. So in terms of your engagement with a potential franchisee, you must try and not do those things that are prohibited by the Act. Two, you must try and not do things that are prohibited in terms of the Code of Ethics. So you must be ethical at all times. So secondly, you must have what we call the disclosure document. The disclosure document actually indicates to the potential franchisee what is it that is required from them? What is it that they need to comply with? What is it that you are going to provide as the franchisor? The kind of the management systems, the training, guidance, supervisory services, problems with issues and all the stuff. Issues with suppliers because they have to be managed. Then you have to have the operations manual. The operations manual tells you what is it expected of you from the floor. So it will give you the operation systems. So you know when you sign the franchise agreement that this franchisor is undertaking to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of the manual. Two, this is what is expected of me day-to-day operations of the business. The benefits of being a member of FASA is to ensure that what you deal with an ethical entity. So you deal with businesses that are authentic and that are genuine. One of the pitfalls, and guys, this is serious. One of the pitfalls is to go out when you have managed to raise cash. Then let's say you have resigned from your work, you have felt that you have had enough, you want to have your own business and you want to venture into franchising. One of the mistakes that we do is not to do a due diligence on the businesses that we want to buy into. One, we discourage people from buying businesses that are not the members of FASA. For the simple reason is that the reason that some are not the members of FASA is because they don't comply with those three things that I've mentioned. Somebody will show you their books, how much the business can make or how much the business is expected to make, and these are the profits they promise you heaven and earth. You buy into the product, you give the person the money, 3 months down the line, you haven't been able to set up. 6 months down the line, you haven't been able to secure the location, or you are told that you cannot get the lease from that area, go somewhere else. So you've been pushed further and further away from where you want to operate. So why we encourage people to become the members of FASA, because we know that they are bound by the code of ethics and they are bound by the Consumer Protection Act. And furthermore, the benefits of being a member of Franchisor, because you now become exposed to a larger pool of network. We have what we call virtual network sessions every month. So once you become a member, we will take your logo, your services that you provide, and then we superimpose it on our website. Everybody who's interested in your business can easily access the info on the website, but also you have access to larger pool of network. In terms of the supply chain, I do agree with Otogo. Until when you buy into the business, the systems already exist. You cannot have a franchise business when you don't have suppliers. The advantage about what we are trying to do now is to say, if there are Black entrepreneurs who have products that they want to offer, I remember, guys, you have the responsibility to market your business or to market your products. The advantage about it, as you can see with Epic and Pay now, they have opened up a door for women empowered businesses to have access to their supply chain. So there are those opportunities which will come now and then, but it depends on the sector and the franchisor. But that depends on what products does a Black person want to offer, and if they are accessible to those franchises that they want to offer. So it's really a question of how you market your business. I can give a simple example of a sauce in relation to food. If you have managed to come up with a nice and special sauce and you market it well, you'll find that some of the franchisors may actually buy into it, and then you become a supplier. If you supply some material or uniform or clothing or whatever, if your designs are great, then it can be done. And you will also remember that some of the businesses often they require renovations, the layout and the marketings and all the stuff. So it depends on who you approach and how you market your business. It cannot, and I don't think it will even be possible where you come to my business and you tell me I should only buy from there. If I'm the franchisor and I've identified the product that I want to offer within my business, and there's a supply chain, already by that time I've identified which products I'll want on the shelves or on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Makhato. I think there's another question from the chat. This is from Sikribo. Yeah, I think he says access to finance is a huge stumbling block. IFA and other financial institutions operate like commercial banks, and this makes it very difficult to meet requirements. Yeah, I'm not sure if, I'm thinking that possibly his question is that people who would like to become franchisees find it difficult to obtain financing from CIFA and other similar institutions. What's your advice related to that in terms of getting finance?
As I've said earlier on, finance is a thorny issue, and it depends on affordability. So if you apply for finance anyway, even if you want to buy a car, even if you want to take a cell phone contract, they will be vetting and see what are your income means, and can you afford to pay this either in installments or so. It's not easy for you if you have no chance of repaying the loan for somebody to give you the loan. It will not happen. I mean, we all know that in terms of funding, you have, if you're going to apply for a loan, you have to prove the means of being able to pay it back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. To me, come again. To me, do you mind making Koto, adding Koto into the panel? Yeah, I think to make things easier for them. Yeah, kindly add them to as a panelist.
Yeah,
Nkosinathi, I see your
Yes, I would like to have a follow-up question. Mr. CEO, I often hear people in your position telling us that they are transforming the organizations in which they are serving. And they often also say that transformation is a process. And we are all well aware that transformation is a process. What we would like to know is the process that you are embarking on. What are the steps that you are taking? What are the measures? What are the changes that you've identified which you want to implement? And what are the timeframes on which you're gonna implement those changes? Because if we go along with an answer which states that transformation is a process, it can take 100 years. It can take 10 years. It can take 1 year. And really, the organization in which you are serving is not transformed at all. It does not even go anywhere near seeking to transform. And it's a huge industry in which you are operating. And as my sister rightfully said, in order for us to be able to gain access, either as service providers or as part of the supply chain, you are the people that must bring about that change and advocate for procurement from those people who have been deliberately left out of the supply chain. It's not going to happen if we hear responses like, yeah, transformation is a process. It is a process, but it's a process in which you need to take measures so that certain goals are achieved and are achieved within a specific time. Thank you.
May I respond?
Thank you for that. Yes, please.
Yeah, I hear what the chair says, but the chair must also appreciate that we work within an environment where you come in and you do what we call assessment of the business. You don't just come in as I came in June and just to say, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do, because you need to understand the whole in how it operates. And my focus now is to identify key stakeholders that can move our project of transformation forward. One, what we have done, we have signed an MOU with Small Business Institute. I hope you know about it. We have signed an MOU and we have also done the action inputs with Soweto Business Collaboration, which I think in terms of the strategy for focus is part of South Africa United Business Council. So what we have done in terms of SOPCO, we have put in the action inputs, and our partner, they have certain actions that they have undertaken, and soon we should be meeting again and be able to approach, because now they are at the stage where they have identified the businesses that we're going to engage and see if we can remodel and, if needs be, reshape to such an extent that they become franchisable. In terms of our approach there, is that we agreed that we need to identify at least 4 in different sectors. 1 was car wash, because we have realized that is dominant. 2 was the butchery. And 3 was funeral, and 4 was the supermarket. So we are not just saying, yeah, it's not easy to transform and all the stuff. And if the chairperson has joined the meeting earlier on, you will have heard that we have now got a permission from Services SETA to formalize what we call a franchising manager. That is an accredited course, and it goes a long way in empowering people. So it's not just a talk shop of Fred coming here and say, I'm the CEO of FASA. So I've laid out the foundation of where we are heading. And I've said these are very important and are critical for our people to take them up, because upskilling and skilling in terms of franchising is important. You cannot go into franchising if you have no information. You cannot go into franchising if you are not trained. It can happen. In any business that you want to go into, you have to learn the ropes. And one of the best ways, and we have seen with other franchisees, is that they were the managers of those franchise businesses. So I've indicated earlier on that education is very important if you want to go into this business. 2, you need to have the proper support. And that is where we are heading. And now we have formed a strong partnership with the Department of Small Business Development. Because all these guys, they were not even paying attention to this sector. We want the playing level first to be leveled so that when our people get into franchising, it becomes easier and better. We don't want just to say we are opening franchising and we set up our people to fail. So we can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Makato. I'm not sure if there's any further questions. And Ngosinati, I'm not sure if your question was answered.
Lebrun, there's another hand.
Yeah, maybe I'm not seeing it on my side. Oh, yes, Tsepo. My apologies. My apologies. Yes, Tsepo, please go forward. Tsepo, you're on mute.
Hello, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Well, thank you so much. So I have 2 questions. The first one relates to finance. So is it possible that, let's say, for example, the total cost of having the franchise, I'm including the in-account, this with the cash that you need to have.
Unencumbered cash.
Thank you. So if I have the total amount, but I have a very bad credit score, will I be able to get a franchise to buy it cash? So that's number one. Because I'm asking this because most of the application I saw, especially on the franchising, it's people are always seeking financing, right? Yeah. So from a cash perspective, and also, do you have an example of such or a way of tracking to say we have, let's say 50 or 10% of KFC franchises that are bought through cash, right? Which takes me to my second question, which is I've seen articles with other franchise companies whereby it seems like they are monopolizing the market. So it's like if you are a franchisee and one of your franchises is performing, they would start to structure let's say, for example, maybe it's a courier or delivery sector that you are in, transport sector that you are in. You'd find that a lot of now deliveries, they are taken to another branch instead of yours. Because I think there was an article about Take a Lot, just to be specific, where another franchisee was complaining that one of their branches were directly being targeted, because of their performance. They were making a good revenue on one of their branches. And they had proof of that, and there were measures which the Take a Lot was coming into play to really show that. I think there was a formal breach which was launched to say that they've not submitted certain reports at the particular time. So because of that, not submitting the report, now they were limited in getting a work or deliveries coming to their branch. So like, I just want to understand from that perspective, in order to govern monopolizing the business, how do you come into play, and how now the financing side does it work for people who are also blacklisted but they have money from a FASA perspective? Thank you.
Thank you, Tsepo. Thank you very, very much. I think you are the first to ask that kind of a question where somebody has cash. When you have the whole amount, or the whole value, there's nothing that stops you from buying into a business. Credit worthiness or a credit score comes in when you apply for a loan. It's not when you buy into a business. It's the same as when you buy a car or you buy a house. You don't need for financial approvals, because all what you do, you bring cash onto the table and you say, this is how much I have, or how much is the business, and they give you the figures, the management costs and all the stuff, and you do the business, and that's it. So if the business costs you 1.5 and you have 1.5, so I don't think there's any franchisor who can say, but you didn't pay 3 rand to Edgar's 3 years ago, because you are buying the business cash. Then in terms of the monopoly, I don't know how Take a Lot works, but what thing I know about the franchise business is that they tend to segment their franchisees into the areas. So often they will not allow their franchises to operate within one space, being 3 or 2. So they will always give, maybe, for example, a kilometer or 2 kilometers from each other. Only those that are unethical can actually do that. So hence, when I responded to Old Togo previously, I indicated that the reason why you become a member of FASA is because you want to ensure that you deal with individuals or businesses that are ethical in nature. So the monopoly part, I don't know whether was it a question of the penalty, that if you don't comply with some of our operational issues, there's going to be a penalty. I don't think a franchisor can jeopardize one of its franchisees because they are doing well, because that should actually be the business model that they promote. So if you are in an area where you are doing well, I don't know why that could happen, because at times when you look at the reports, or if you were doing well and you start to lose the business, often, more often than not, then you tend to have the excuses, you tend to have the suspicions and all the stuff. Because if you are doing well, why aren't you submitting the reports as you are required to do in terms of the franchise agreement? So I wouldn't really know what's happening in there, but I don't think there is a way of the franchisor coming in to intentionally sabotage a well-doing business. I'm not aware of that, and I don't think that can actually be possible, because you want your franchisees to do well. But if the other one is struggling due to some reasons, then it could be that they have to attend to those. I hope I've answered you.
Yes, no, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Mahato. Thanks, Tepo, for that question. I'm not sure if there's any other question. Koto, I'm not sure if you have a question.
There's one
Yes,
more.
Ntate Makgato, just the last one. The beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that there's 3 panels advertised where people can apply to be part of the panel or something like that. Can you kindly advise where? I'm just on the website, I'm not finding it.
Go to our legal section. So you'll see there should be adverts about services SITA.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And then I see there's so 35M, I think, has raised a hand. You're on mute. Please unmute. So 35M. Okay, maybe it's a robot. Let me drop the hand.
So there's another hand from Umuzo.
Okay, Pomozo. Pomozo, go for it.
Hi, managers, comrades, how are you? And how are you, Ntate Makgato? Good, good.
How are you, my brother?
No, I'm good. Apologies, I just joined in late. I just wanted to ask the program directors to make the recordings available so that some of us can be able to access the link. Unfortunately, there are so many Zoom meetings these days. Please, if you could just make the recordings available to kindly assist. Apologies for joining late. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go back to So 35M.
The hand is down now.
No, I think they unmuted for a second. Oh, Pomozo, please go for it. Oh, Pomozo, you don't have a question?
I think maybe his hand was up then and he can't lower it.
Oh, okay. No, I think, yeah, Mr. Makgato, thank you so much for your time. And I think, I know in your busy schedule, it's not easy to schedule so much time for us. And please bear with us because I think this is only the first of many, as we as the BMF want to inculcate a culture of becoming entrepreneurs and of going into the franchising industry. Yeah, so I think we also want to create a culture of support, as you mentioned, for people to come forward with challenges in terms of how can they be resolved, and channeling those challenges to the right people like yourselves.
I think we appreciate the opportunity and the platform, in that as I've just come in now, I think it is important that we create a platform where we engage. And I think, as you have said, this is one of many. And I think, I don't know how we're going to link up with the Texa one, because I think what we also need is to have one strong voice to be able to lobby those we identify as, one could put it, as targets, where we want to take our messages to. I will agree with the chairperson that we don't need to have talk shops where we talk and no action. So I think for us, I will appreciate is a situation where we meet with your ESCO and say, right, well, what is it that we want to achieve? What is it that BMF wants to see FASA doing? And what will be the role of BMF in FASA? Because at times it is not easy to influence when you are outside. So it has never happened and it will never happen. So we need to have a strong voice within. So if we talk from the different sides, in most cases, it doesn't work. So we have to find a common ground and join forces and hands and see to it that, because as we are the drivers of the strategy within FASA, at the end of the day, we should be able to report back to the board and the industry and say, this is what we have achieved, and this is what we have said we are going to achieve, and these are the results. So I think interacting with you guys is important for us, and we're gonna need more to be able to achieve all the concerns that were raised. So some of the things that we can actually be able to put as the action inputs and say, these are the programs that we need to work on. I really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for your input. And I think this has been a fruitful first webinar, first of many. And I'd like to thank everyone who joined the webinar, and everyone who had a question, and I hope your question was answered. If it was not, please note that this is not the last webinar. And as Dr. Mafoto mentioned, that as the BMF, we must give him action items, of which we will follow up on that and send him action items as per this meeting, and any other action items we may get after the meeting. With that, I'd like to say thank you, and everyone, have a good night.